Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening. Welcome back. I'm Raja Mukherjee, and this is my channel, The Value Creation Playbook. Today, in episode 40, I wanted to start with a situation that will be familiar with almost everybody watching this. A business decides to transform, they hire the strategy consultants, the tech is excellent, the logic is sound, the board approves it, the CEO announces it, and then 18 months later, almost nothing has fundamentally changed. The finance team ran out of money. The operating model did not shift. The KPIs changed, but the behaviors did not. And in the post-mortem, everybody had a different explanation. The market moved. The technology was not ready. The timing was wrong. I'm here today to offer a different explanation. One that is almost never said in the rooms because it's uncomfortable, political, and points to people rather than plans. The transformation did not fail because the strategy was wrong. It failed because it was a people problem in disguise. And today, I am going to show you exactly what that means and what to do about it. Let me be precise what I'm saying and not saying. I'm not saying strategy does not matter. It does. A fundamentally flawed strategy will fail regardless of execution quality. But in my experience, genuinely flawed strategies are relatively rare. What is much more common and much less discussed is a sound strategy that never gets delivered because of structural people failures underneath it. Think about a transformation requirement, the actual requirement. It requires you to top 6 to 8 leaders to genuinely agree on what success looks like. Not in theory, but operationally. It requires the right people to be in the right roles to execute it, and it requires those people to have the capability the new model demands, not just the capability that got them to their current position. When one of these conditions are not met, the transformation stalls. When all of these are absent, which is more common than you think, the transformation fails completely, and the postmortem blames the strategy. The strategy really lets you down. The people architecture around it did. Now, these are the three specific people problems that I see derail transformations repeatedly across industries, across geographies, and across business sizes. Problem number one, leadership misalignment. Your top team thinks they're aligned, they are not. Problem number two, the wrong person in a key role. You know who am I talking about. So does everybody else in the room. The question is why they are still there. Problem number three, capability gaps nobody admits. The transformation requires skill and behavior that existing team does not have. And the organization is pretending it does not notice. Each one of these costs between 6 and 18 months of lost momentum. Together, they account for the majority of the transformation failures I've encountered. Let me take you through each of them so that you'll be clearer on what I mean by these problems. Problem one, leadership misalignment. And I want to be precise about what misalignment actually looks like because it's not obvious. It does not look like people arguing in a boardroom. It looks like people nodding in a boardroom and then doing exactly opposite or different things when they get back to their desks. Here's the test that I use. I ask the senior leadership team separately, of course, sometimes individually, but without preparation. The same 6 questions. What are the top 3 priorities for this business right now? What decisions can each person make without individually uh, involving someone else, etc. Now, genuinely aligned teams, the answers converge. Different words, of course, but the same substance in it. In a misaligned team, which is in most teams, if you are being honest, the answers diverge in ways that is sometimes subtle and sometimes spectacular. The CEO thinks it's the cost story, the chief operating officer thinks it's an efficiency story, the chief marketing officer thinks it's a growth story, and the CEO thinks everybody agrees because everybody smiled during the strategy offsite. Nobody is lying, nobody is being difficult. They're simply operating from a different mental model of what the transformation is actually for. And these different models produce different behaviors, different resource allocation decisions, different hiring choices, and different priorities under pressure. The result is a transformation program that pulls in 6 directions simultaneously and wonders why it's not moving forward. Problem number 2, the wrong person in a key role. And I will say that most advisors in this space are reluctant to say that directly. In almost every transformation I have close to that stalled in his first year, there was a person, usually a senior person, who was visibly not the right fit for that business related outcome. Not a bad guy, not an incompetent person, someone has been excellent at what the business used to need and who was now not right for what it needed next. And everybody knew. The CEO knew, the leadership team knew, the person himself often had a quiet sense of it. But the conversation did not happen for 12 months. And in those 12 months, decisions were made at the wrong level, the wrong capability was modeled for the wider team, and the pace of change was governed by what that person was comfortable with, which was, by definition, old model. Why does this happen? Not from malice, from a very human set of instincts. Loyalty to someone who performed well in the previous chapter. It could also be conflict avoidance. The conversation is uncomfortable and the timing never feels right. And a genuine uncertainty about whether the transformation will actually stick, which makes people decisive, actions taking feel very premature. Here is the cost calculation that changes the conversation. Every month a misaligned senior leader stays in a critical role, 3 things happen. First, the organization takes signals from their behavior and calibrates its own accordingly. Second, decisions that require a different approach are either delayed or made in an old way. Third, the people below that leader who are watching carefully adjust their own behavior to match what is being rewarded. The cost is not the salary. The cost is 12 to 18 months of cultural drift in the wrong direction. And the drift is very hard to reverse. Problem number 3, the capability gap that nobody admits. And this one is particularly interesting because it is usually the most visible problem and the most one that is actively ignored. Every meaningful transformation requires capability that the existing organization either has or does not have at all, or does not have in sufficient depth that is required to execute at the current pace. This is not an insult to the existing team. It is simply a statement of fact about what different business models require. A business moving from product led to solution led requires consultative selling capability. It may have never needed before. Our business embedding digital workforce into operations required change management capability that the operation team was never hired to have. A business moving from centralized to decentralized decision making requires judgment and accountability at a level the organization has never asked of it in its middle management. Most transformation programs acknowledge this intellectually and then proceed as if the acknowledgement was sufficient. They know the they note the capability gap in slide number 14 of the strategy deck. They schedule a training program, and then they expect the transformation to run at full speed while the capability is being developed. It does not work. You cannot redesign the engine while driving at motorway speed. The capability gap is not a footnote to the transformation plan. Now, why do these problems exist? I have been talking about these three problems. So, if they're so damaging and this is so common, why does every transformation program not address them at the first priority? That could be a question that pops your mind. The honest answer is that people problems are the hardest problem to talk about in a corporate setting. Strategy problems can be resolved with analysis, technology problems can be resolved with investment, people problems require a level of candor, courage, and a political capital that most organizations simply do not sustain over the course of a transformation. This is not a measurement problem. The cost of misalignment does not appear in the P&L. The cost of the wrong senior hire shows up in organizational friction or slower than expected progress, not as a line item. The capability gaps tend to manifest in delivery problems. The team is overwhelmed, the work streams are behind, which gets managed as resourcing issues rather than the capability issue. And I'll say this gently, there is an incentive problem. The consultants running the transformation are often being rewarded by producing strategy output than by naming the people problem that will determine whether the strategy gets executed. The leadership team sponsoring the transformation has a natural interest in the plan being sound and execution being a delivery problem. And the board, reviewing monthly progress report, is really given the visibility it needs to ask the right question. The result of all these separate diagnosable, addressable problems go unaddressed, and the transformation fails in ways that feels mysterious but are, in retrospect, entirely predictable. Now, let me give you a practical tool. 6 questions, ask them to your top team individually, not in a group, not with preparation, and not with the expectation that there is a right answer. What you are looking for is a convergence. The answers point in the same direction, your team is more aligned than most. If they diverge significantly, you have found your transformation constraint. Question 1. What are the top 3 priorities for this business in the next 12 months? Not the strategic themes, the actual priorities. What gets time with money and senior attention if a conflict arises? Question 2. What does success look like at the end of transformation in specific measurable terms? Not a more agile organization. We need numbers, behaviors, outcomes. Question 3. What decisions can you make without involving anyone else? Question number 4. If this transformation stalls in the next 6 months, what will have caused it? Listen carefully. The answer is usually an honest diagnosis of the organization's actual constraints, the ones nobody is officially allowed to name. Question 5. Who is the leadership team is the right role for where the business is going? I know this one is uncomfortable. Ask it anyway, but ask it yourself first. Question number 6. What capability does this organization not have that it needs to execute this transformation? and what is the plan for that capability, not in theory, but specifically with names, timelines, and investment attached. Now, let's also spend a couple of minutes on what good looks like. What does a people aligned transformation actually feel like from the inside? It feels like decisions getting made at the right level and not coming back. It feels the workstream moving at different speeds without the CEO having to personally resolve every conflict. The structural conditions that produced this are specific. First, a shared definition of success that is precise enough to resolve priority conflicts without escalation, not a vision statement, an operating definition with numbers attached. Second, role clarity that is written down, agreed, and revisited quarterly, not assumed or implied. Third, a capability investment plan that is sequenced to the transformation, not bolted onto it. And fourth, a leadership review rhythm that asks the people question, not the performance question, at regular intervals. The businesses that execute transformation well are not the ones with better strategies. They are the ones that treat the people architecture, alignment, roles, capability as a first class operational concern, the same rigor and accountability they give to financial performance. People architecture, ladies and gentlemen, is not an HR function. It is a CEO function. And the CEOs who understand that they are ones whose transformation delivers at the end of the day. So, what is the bottom line? How do we come about getting everything done together, the right resources, with the right change management? What does a people aligned transformation looks like? So, bottom line is misalignment has to be taken care of. Also, we should know that all the issues that we just now talked about are all diagnosable and nothing is unsolvable. I would always suggest that start with the 6 questions first and see what the response you are getting. If they converge, if there's not much of a gap in whatever people are saying, then we have a well-tuned team. Now, I always say if you want to run that diagnostic properly with a structured process, an external perspective, and a clear output, the link in the description will take you to a 45 minutes profitability assessment with me, with my team. We'll look at your specific leadership team, your specific transformation, and your specific constraints. It's a working session and it will tell you more than about what your transformation is moving at the speed. It is more than a program review within a year. And as always, subscribe if you want more frameworks like this every week for the CEOs, CFOs, private equity leaders, and PE leaders. This channel is for the people who run businesses and want them to run better. No generic advice, just the thinking that actually moves the needle. I'm Raja Mukherjee. Thanks for being a part of this journey. This was episode 40, and we'll connect again next week for a new episode. Till then, let's stay connected. Thanks for watching. Take care. Bye for now.